half Atiku is better than thousands of Buhari.
Buhari is doing the best in Nigeria.
Welcome to another episode of In the Line of Fire on Rootstv Nigeria. I am Itogi Mo Edit. March 23, Nigeria held its presidential elections, and of course the incumbent was declared the winner 3 days after. Subsequently, the opposition's party, majorly headed by the People's Democratic Party, have said that they will be heading to the court to contest the result. What will come out of it is what Nigerians are waiting. To discuss this and more with me today is a legal practitioner, a leadership coach, and an analyst, Shadrach Bako. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Well, what do you make out of the heavyweight Atiku Abubakar heading to the court to contest the result?
Well, basically, it's a fundamental right that the Constitution allows for. The elections have been won and lost, basically, but he has a right to test the veracity of results through the courts, and I think for that purpose, he's free to do so. Though I would have thought that having had a precedent in 2015, where the then incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan, lost elections, called the winner and congratulated the winner, I thought that we would have had that as scenario coming into our democracy and staying put. But then he said he will contest the elections, and I think he's free to do that.
But do you think the election was widely rigged from reports from observers who were on the field? Well,
observers' reports tend to suggest otherwise, all right? Because international observers have said they were at the elections. Elections were free and fair. National observers have also said so. And I think, in all honesty, that the elections were free and fair to a great extent. And I say to a great extent because, again, you cannot do away with rigging at certain polls, but I don't think that the elections on the overall were rigged. And some of the reasons I would state are the fact that 17 out of 36 states went to the opposition party. 19 states went to the incumbent president. I don't think that anyone rigging would have made that division. Besides that, the states where the president won elections are the states where he has consistently won elections even when he lost at the general polls.
But what do you make out of the incident that happened in Yobe State, a morning to the elections, and then that state happens to even have the largest result? What do you make? How do you play that out?
Well, in all honesty, what I usually tell people is go back to previous elections. You would discover the high number of turnout at those areas, Borno, Yobe in particular. The only places that are beating Borno, Yobe in terms of turnout when it comes to elections are Lagos and Kano State. And it's replicated itself at the moment. All right? When we talk about security, those people do value security. They do understand the things that the current government has done to ensure that they get secured. Okay? The government or the Nigerian forces have not defeated Boko Haram, but they've made a headway as far as defeating Boko Haram is concerned. And I think that the people thought it probably wise to pay back to the government by that huge turnout.
But there were reports of the election result being meddled by the incumbent government, because it took INEC 3 days to announce the result.
Yes.
What do you think would have happened? I mean, something would have happened between then.
Well, some things would have happened between then, of course. Again, I do not take away the fact that, you see, when you delay results, you give room for all sorts of insinuations and so on. Now, but I do think that so many things have come up in these elections that we didn't have previously. Okay, the general method of our elections, the turnout of candidates, the fear about security, and so on and so forth was, in my estimation, was basically hyped up. And I think that caution had to be taken for some results to come in, all right? But you see, for those who I voted, voted. I waited for the elections to be counted or the results to be counted. The candidate I voted for lost at my own polling unit. And I went home knowing that these things will reflect. And on the overall, it reflected, all right, also in the FCT. Okay, so I think those things may have accumulated to bring the delay as far as results are concerned.
But there was also the case that INEC, they had a lot of pressure from the incumbent government. And that necessitated the postponement of the elections.
I do not think that the pressure that INEC had was to the extent of tampering with results. All right? These elections were postponed. I tell people, look at the president. He was surprised even by the postponement. It was a shock to him. Okay? Now, that giving, that taking. Okay? Yes, there could have been pressure from people who had an interest in this government, who would have reached out to INEC to suggest all sorts of things. So yes, INEC could have had.
Do you have an idea, the people you're talking about?
Well, I won't mention names. And in all honesty, I do not have names. Okay, but then I know that there would have been pressures from persons outside of INEC, particularly persons even within the government, to ensure that INEC either tilted results towards the favor of the government, but I do not think that it was so glaring as to declare all of the elections as being rigged.
The president may have won and gotten his certificate from INEC. But May 29 is just around the corner.
Yes.
What preparation do you think he's making to ensure that he ushers in a smooth 4 years?
Okay. Well, from the things we've heard from the president, he said that the next 4 years would even be tough.
Why?
Okay. And my interpretation of that, having listened to the details, is the fact that I think that in the course of the campaign, there were things that the president got to know that he had not known previously.
Okay.
Okay. There were persons around him who were roped in or peddled with corruption that I think in the course of this
I mean, even up to now, we still have people who have cases.
Very well.
Very around
Very
him.
well. All right? And in the course of this campaign, so many things were made glaring to him. You heard the president talk about the lopsidedness of his appointments. And he says, look, names were given based on criteria. But I think having sat down with leaders from the Southeast, he does understand what the implications are for the nation. And I think that this time around, things will change in that respect. And by the way,
so the fact that he said things will be tough doesn't mean that the economy will be tough.
No, not necessarily that the economy will be tough. I think that his fight on corruption will be tougher this time around.
Okay.
There are persons that we should, well, but not should, there are persons that we least expect that the president would go after, that I think he would go after even in this second tenure. That's the toughness I think he's talking about. All right? Already, basically, well, I think for the sake of correction, you know that Democracy Day has been shifted from May 29th to June 12th.
Yes.
So I do expect that swearing in will most likely be on June 12th, not May 29th.
But we also need to confirm that, because I mean that has been a subject of.
It's been a subject of
because May 29, June 12, which is the president. Because don't you think if he stays till June, I mean he would have exceeded. Exactly.
He would have extended.
Yes. Even if he's the incumbent or he won the election. Well, do you think something will be faulty somewhere with that, legally or constitutionally?
29th May was not cast on stone. It was made by humans, all right? There was a reason for that. Now, he said June 12th is our proper day for democracy. So if he shifts it to June 12th, I don't think there will be any harm in that respect. By the way, it's not even in the Constitution, so he won't be breaching any law, so to speak.
Cabinet reshuffle, is there going to be a surprise?
Oh, certainly.
What are we looking at?
Certainly. He said he would bring in more younger persons, he would bring in more women, so that means that some persons would have to give way for younger men and women to be in the cabinet.
You know, there's also a problem with the president, the fact that he, when you say younger people, I mean, you also need to be sure of
what his definition
the age range of younger people. I mean,
you
could have the likes of Akpabio, and then you could still say they are younger people.
Well, exactly. I do agree with you. I think it needs to be guided as to what young means, all right? because he does not see himself as being old. So I don't think that he would think of people or persons who are 50 and above as also being old. He may consider them as being young. But I'm hopeful that he would look beyond that. He would come down to the 40s.
Okay.
Choose men and women who are experts in their fields, all right? Technocrats, people who know the things that move nations forward. I do hope that he comes to that point where he takes young men and women, people who would see things even differently from him, and he will be willing to listen to them and also learn from them within the next 4 years. So these are some of the changes that I do expect.
But there's also the case of the president being one side in terms of his fight against corruption.
Yes.
I mean, and do you see him correcting that in the coming years?
I don't see it. I don't see much.
The opposition as a target for the fight in corruption.
I don't see much changes in that respect. One or two persons who are within the ruling party will be affected. I do think so. But a chunk of the persons will be from the so-called opposition. And I say this basically because if you've listened to the president, his commentary has always been that the opposition has held power for over 16 years, and basically they ruined the country within this period. So his hunt is on those who have been in power and have ruined the country within that period in his thought and estimation. So I think he would go after them even some more.
But how about those around him? You know, like we mentioned earlier, there are people around him who are facing corruption charges.
Yes.
Is he not seeing them?
When you say people around him who are facing corruption charges,
yes.
I think at the moment, if my memory serves me right, there is no one basically around him who is serving corruption charges and the charges are not ongoing. Okay? Orji Uzor has been elected as a senator, I understand, but he has his corruption charges ongoing. Okay? In fact, judgment should have been given in February, except for some delay. Okay? And I think that those trials would continue. Men like Dare had moved from the PDP to the APC. They had a charge against them. The charge was run through. Dare has been found guilty. All right? The trial did not stop. Okay? So I think that commentary about running into the APC and stopping trial cannot be, or I won't say cannot be, but I do not think that it is all correct to say once you run into APC, your trial stalls. No.
But just before I let you go, what do you think about the president's health? Do you see him finishing the next 4-year term?
Again, that is a give and take. That's well.
It's a 50-50.
It's a 50-50 situation. Okay. There are persons who are older than him, who have been in power, who have lasted that long. Okay. Of course, Ahmed Bouteflika right now has had a stroke over years. He's still contesting a 5th time. He's older than the president.
But do you think that may be the case of the president? That may be the case of the president.
I do not think
eventually.
So. I do not think
eventually, because already we know his health status and the fact that another 4 years as a president
will be very stressful. I do understand that. But you see, one of the things the president has proved in the course of his campaign is that the health is not as terrible as people want us to believe. Okay? I've also believed that, look, this man is sick, he can't go the full hog. But he's gone around the 36 states.
But don't you think that's a different scenario, going around the 36 states and then being in power for the next 4 years?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right? Because whether you like it or not, it takes proper energy to go around. The opposition didn't go around the 36 states. That's the picture. But he went around the 36 states, including the FCT. I think, for me, that should be, or he should have a plus even from that. But that is not to say that his health will carry him all through. Life belongs to God, of course, like we all know. But then, again, one cannot tell.
50-50.
We'll just watch and see. I think it's a 50-50 situation for him.
Thank you so much, Barrister Shadrach Bago, for speaking with us. And that's a package on In the Line of Fire. I am Itogi Moided. Thank you for watching.
Half article is better than thousands of Buhari.
Buhari is doing the best in Nigeria.